Hey, what up? It's Brad with Home Love Construction. And in this video, I want to talk to you about what you should do if you're worried about the cost of a renovation that you're planning. If you're planning on doing a renovation, you're typically only going to do it one time. So the biggest thing to look at is, how can I make sure that I'm getting the entire scope of work done with whatever amount of money I'm going to spend on the project? That's actually the first thing to look at, is make sure that you're actually asking for quotes for the entire scope of work that you want done. Because what people really wind up hating at the end of a renovation, after, we've done hundreds, if not thousands at this point, of major renovations, like whole homes, additions, stuff like that. The thing that people wind up getting pissed off about is, I spent $200,000 and I didn't even get my staircase redone, because it was never brought up as, hey, it also needs to include redoing the staircase, right? The staircase gets covered, at the end it gets uncovered, and it's an old staircase with all the rest of the stuff, which may sound stupid, but if it's not explicitly stated as, hey, I want to redo my staircase, the contractor's not going to do it. So you got to make sure that you have the whole scope put together so that you get the whole package for what you're going to wind up paying. Now, the second thing is change orders. Okay, so there's a couple points on change orders, because when people are worried about cost, like the upfront cost of a renovation is really nothing to be scared about. The contractor's going to tell you it's going to be $200,000, it's going to be $300,000, whatever, right? There's nothing to be scared about there. It's just information. So if you can't afford to do it, you can't afford to do it, whatever. Like, no big deal. But once you enter into a contract, then I would understand, and it would make sense to have some attention on, hey, what's going to happen if we have a change order? How does that work? What happens? So I want to lay that out, because it is a big concern for people, and to some extent, it's a very valid concern. So here's the thing, is typically on 99.9% of construction projects, there is some sort of unforeseen defect in the existing home that the new contractor has to come in and fix, that they cannot predict without having X-ray goggles to see inside the walls and floors, okay? So that type of stuff, it can happen, and you just need to have a emergency ripcord solution for, hey, either we're gonna take this out of the scope if that happens and spend the money there, or I'm gonna get a loan from my parents, or I'm gonna go beg for money in the street corner. Whatever it is, like I'm being a little silly here, but seriously, you gotta have a pull in case of emergency plan if something really happens, because you have to be able to put the house back together, obviously. And if you contracted to do it with a contractor, you have to have that plan worked out ahead of time. Now, the biggest thing that would bar you from being able to handle that easily is something called a cost plus contract. When you have a contractor who proposes to you a cost plus contract, what you have is a contractor who's saying, look, I don't know how much it's going to cost. I have no way of knowing how much it's going to cost. And the amount that it's going to cost is going to be fully your responsibility. I'm going to get paid whether I come in under budget or not, and whatever it costs is what it costs to you, and I make more money the more time it takes and the more costly it is. That is actually what a cost plus contract really conveys, is the more you spend, the more I make, and the more I spend, the more I make. And that doesn't really, for me, that's never made sense. We don't do that at Home Love. We do fixed price contracts. So one thing is, you want to be sure you have a fixed price contract. The second, and by the way, this is to prevent cost overruns, is kind of what I'm getting into here, is you want to make sure that you have an itemized contract. And you want to actually have it broken down as far as, okay, how many feet of baseboard? How many sheets of drywall? How many square feet of paint? Like, you literally want the contractor to go down to this minute level of detail. And by the way, the best thing is when each of those has a cost associated with it. You're not always going to be able to get that. That is a very high level, but for our major renovations here at Home Love Construction, they all get this. They all get a breakdown of where every penny of their money is actually going, like what they're actually receiving for every penny that they're spending with us. And if your contractor can't provide that, well, you don't have any assurance that he's thought of everything, because you can't go through the list and say, okay, yeah, he accounted for that and that and that and that and that. Oh, where's the, oh, he's not going to paint the outside of the house? I thought the outside of the house was included. Like, if that's not broken out, if it just says renovate the home, do new kitchen, add on 20 by 20 addition with a bathroom, that's not a specific enough scope of work. You're going to wind up having change orders. So A rule to follow if you're concerned about cost overruns during your project is getting a specific scope of work nailed down up front is going to be critical for you. And if you don't have a specific scope of work, like detailed out of, okay, hang and finish to level 3 with orange peel texture, 56 sheets of drywall, like literally to that level. And if there's contractors watching this, they're probably like, that's too much time, blah, blah, blah. Dude, figure out how to do it faster. Like we can do quotes like that and it takes us 3 or 4 hours. So you got to figure out a system to make yourself faster. It's not, if you want help with that, go to my personal Instagram. I'm Home Love Brad. I help contractors with that. But for homeowners, which is who this is really directed to, is you need to make sure that you have an itemized contract, because you wouldn't spend, $20,000 with on Amazon if you didn't get a list of all the items you were getting from Amazon, right? So it's kind of like the same thing here. All you're getting is a huge list of products. It needs to be listed out by the contractor. And if you don't have that, you're setting yourself up for big change orders for things that you probably already thought were included. Now, the other thing you need to do is you need to actually read your contract. Like, I know that this is a pain in the ass. It's probably a stack of papers. It might be 30 pages. You need to read every page of your contract. Now, that's not because contractors are trying to trick you. That's because the contractor is expressing all of the things that have gone wrong previously that he's now trying to prevent going wrong on your project. When the contract says, hey, we're not liable for matching paint exactly, you should ask, hey, why are you not liable for matching the paint exactly? Oh, well, as if we don't paint a wall corner to corner, I can't guarantee that the paint is gonna match in the middle if I just touch it up. And then you're like, okay, well, we should just paint corner to corner. Then he can say, okay, well, that'll be an extra $500, or okay, good, that's included, it's fine. But if you don't go through that, how do you know? And it's like, well, I shouldn't have to. Some people would say, I shouldn't have to read contracts. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I shouldn't have to write contracts. We should just be able to, and be done with it. But that's not the way it is. So frankly, deal with it and say, this is about saving yourself from cost overruns. So if you want to save yourself from cost overruns, if you have the money that it doesn't matter, then don't read the contract. But if you want to save yourself from cost overruns, read the freaking contract, every letter of it, okay? Because then you'll actually know what is and is not included. And then you'll actually feel causative over the situation rather than effect of, I didn't know, blah, blah, blah. How could I have known? You could have known. You could have read the contract. So that said, read your contract. So we've talked about change orders. We've talked about cost plus. We've talked about itemized contract. The last thing that we do need to talk about here is the contractor who underquotes something. And what happens in this instance where, he says, I'm going to do 100 sheets of drywall. And originally that's quoted at, let's see, probably, 100 sheets, 10 grand, something like that. Maybe more, maybe less. That's not a quote. I'm just spitballing numbers here. I think we're actually more than that. But, 100 sheets of drywall, 10 grand. And then it turns out, oh, crap. Actually, I was wrong. The same number of sheets of drywall is actually going to cost me 50% more. So I need to charge you an extra $5 grand. Whoops. Hey, got to pay me for me to continue. Is the contractor entitled to that? So unless you have a cost plus contract, or there's some sort of clause in the contract where there's a price escalation or something like that, and it specifically states that if the contractor's prices for labor goes up, there's some that have to do with materials that started during COVID, and this really, contractors should have this in their contract where, if lumber prices go from $30 per sheet of plywood to $60, they should have the right to increase the cost of that, because that's a little unfair. But if their subcontractor just rips them, or they didn't actually do their research, that shouldn't be on the homeowner to have, all of a sudden a labor increase on them. They're not the person who hired labor. So the bottom line is, in most cases, a contractor underbidding something leading to you getting a change order is not actually valid. Like, it's not actually a valid change order. So those should be challenged and often rejected. Like, if our subcontractors come to us, because we get these same things as a general contractor dealing with subs, we get people trying to pull the stuff on me. They're like, oh, well, I quoted it for, I didn't know we'd have to do blah, blah, blah. I didn't know I'd have to dig and take the grass off to do the slab. And it's like, they'll say these ridiculous things and we just have to be like, okay, got it. Well, we can find somebody else to do it, or you can do the job for what you quoted. What are we gonna do here? And you really have to stand your ground on those types of things. But you also have to know what type of thing you're dealing with. Is it the contractor asking for money without any justification? Or is it a real unforeseen defect that's being handled, like a wall that has to be rebuilt or something like that? So that's really the last piece I would put to this on how to prevent cost overruns. The major things are make sure you have an itemized contract, read the contract, and then be sure you know what's a valid change order under the contract and what is not, so that you can actually you can actually hold your ground with a contractor if needed and reject change orders that aren't valid and know which change orders are valid. So I hope that helps you if you're looking to deal with an honest contractor who actually wants you to get your project done and wants you to know how much it's going to cost up front without crazy surprises and all this kind of craziness that contractors try to pull on people. HomeLove would be happy to help you with your project. We do instant estimates. We have the best design process that's proprietary and is the best in the world. And we love doing renovations for homeowners. That's what we live to do. Contractors say it's the hardest thing you can do. We love difficult projects, really. We love it. We live for it. So if you have a difficult project that you want help with, just email info@homelove.construction. We'd be happy to help you with it. Hope this video helped you, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.